On the Radio Whammo Breakfast.
Basically, this generation is more liberal, more tolerant, more Democrat-leaning than the one before. It's not just because they're young.
For another point of view, it's Hard News with Russell Brown and Whammo on Kiwi.
Yes, here's the head-on show over at publicaddress.net, the Media 7 show at TVNZ7 as well. Russell Brown joins us. Morning, Russell.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, a couple of issues that you covered yesterday on the blog. First up, God, I don't even know where to start with this one, whether or not to say the word celebrity or what, but anyway, it involved Martin Devlin, a thing that happened with him and the police before New Year's, and the Herald. Yes.
Okay, well, let's kick off with the Herald's original story, which was on December 31st. It was the front page lead. It was splashed across the front page. You would have thought it was a big story, especially from the headline, Top Secret, Celebrity Arrested in Central City. And then the first paragraph was, a celebrity household name was arrested and charged with bad behaviour in downtown Auckland, but he has been allowed to keep his identity secret. And if you didn't know already, on Monday we discovered that was Martin Devlin, who asked for his interim name suppression to be lifted.
Huh.
And the utter overkill on this story by the Herald is the first astonishing thing. I mean, the words top secret in the age of WikiLeaks over a celebrity arrested for what turns out to be the most minor infraction you could imagine.
Yeah, which made some people who would fall into that category come out publicly and say, oh, it wasn't me.
Oh, well, that's actually a very interesting thing there, Whammo, because some of those people who have been quoted as coming out and saying it wasn't me, including, say, John Campbell and Simon Dello, never talked to a journalist about it.
Oh.
Basically, from what I can tell, there was a Sunday news story which quoted Mike McRoberts and implied that John Campbell had actively denied he was the person involved, and somehow got Simon Dello into it. The Herald picked that up. It actually runs dangerously close to fabricating quotes, because these two have both posted on the discussion thread on Public Address about this to say, no, we never even returned their calls. John Campbell said he didn't want to perpetuate what he thought was an unpleasant situation.
Yeah.
So celebrity crazed were these journalists that they actually started making stuff up. And of course, the idea that someone else is being persecuted because suspicion is falling unfairly on them is one of the justifications for there being no name suppression. But the interesting thing with the Herald is that they've started to run away from this story. The original news story about Devlin's suppression being lifted was interesting for one particular thing. It had the word celebrity in it, but the word celebrity was in quotes, as if someone else had said it.
Very childish.
Very childish. And then the self-justifying editorial in the paper yesterday did the same thing. And you would have had the impression that they'd virtually never heard of this guy, who they had described in their front page lead story as a celebrity household name. The editorial then went on to say, well, how are we to know that it wasn't a very serious thing at all? Because basically, he acted like a dick, sat on, in the course of an argument, sat on the bonnet of his own car being driven by his wife. There was no violence, no threats, no abusive language, and you kind of wonder whether it was really necessary to arrest him for disorderly conduct, but that's what happened. But the Herald saying, how were we to know? Well, if you had only waited 2 or 3 weeks to hear the evidence read in court, then you would know.
This is true.
I think just the whole thing, that editorial yesterday pointed at everyone else.
But also in this, you're also saying that the Herald appears schizophrenic. It does one thing one week and then another thing the other week.
Yeah.
Is it possible, because that was during holiday time, that there were a whole lot of different staff on?
That's entirely possible, actually. That someone more junior made the editorial decision to go with this.
Yeah.
And it's not certainly not out of keeping with the way the Herald was over the holiday period. The Shane Curry effect, the tabloidisation of the Herald, was incredibly notable over the holiday period. There was one, was it the Friday before the big day out, I think, there was a Herald front page that had 2 celebrity stories and a picture of a shark. And, it sounds like a joke.
Yeah.
But anyway, with this Devlin thing, the thing that really annoys me is that they're not even willing to own their own decisions on this. They seem to have blamed everyone else. They blamed the law, they blamed the judge, they blamed the public, overwhelming public interest. Well, it wasn't until you put it on your front page.
Yeah.
And it does turn out that it really wasn't a story, and more so, it very, very strongly appears that the decent and sensible thing to do would have been to let the family get on with it. Devlin himself said he wanted to spare his kids who are at school the embarrassment of all this. And he points out that the best way to do that would be not acting like a dick. But, the point remains, and you really have to wonder what the moral, where the moral compass is here, because this was such a minor thing. And to blow it up without even knowing the facts of the case, I think, really, some questions have to be asked of that paper. It's the paper of record. We rely on that paper. And when it starts doing stupid stuff like this, I don't know, I'm appalled by it.
Oh, we live in a sad small town.
We do. I'm really appalled by it. And especially, that thing you said earlier on about, about people denying it. And we now know that neither John Campbell or Simon Dello spoke to any journalist, let alone denied that they were the person. This was all made up to feed the story.
Absolute shocker. Staying with the Herald, an opinion piece yesterday about the state of Starbucks in New Zealand.
Yeah, and you can't blame the Herald editorially on this, because the author was Nathan Field, who's a senior equity analyst at Gareth Morgan Investments. It'll still be on the website if you go back and look for it. He muses on the failure of the Starbucks chain in New Zealand. And he says that's because we're a nation of coffee snobs, it makes us feel sort of rebellious if we go to a cafe where the barista has tattoos.
Really?
Yeah. And not so long ago, we didn't even know what an espresso was, and he makes various claims, including, why would Starbucks care? Because sales numbers in India are really encouraging. Starbucks isn't doing any business in India. It doesn't have any outlets there.
That's a shame we couldn't get those facts straight.
No, the man's an analyst. So, sales figures are encouraging.
But this story puzzles me, because I don't care. I don't care that Starbucks doesn't care, or I just don't care. I just want a good cup of coffee, and the best cup of coffee I get is down at the local cafe.
Yeah, exactly, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You're exercising your consumer choice and demanding a better cup of coffee. But the funny thing about Field is that he's determined that Starbucks was serving up espresso long before Kiwis even knew what the word meant. That's not only wrong; it's about 5 decades wrong.
Right.
There were espresso machines in New Zealand in the 1950s, and Hamish Keith was kind enough to point out that he was operating one in Christchurch in 1956.
Was he?
Yeah. By comparison, Starbucks didn't sell a cup of coffee to a member of the public until 1986. New Zealand cafe culture was well underway by then.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I certainly don't remember Starbucks even in the 90s.
No. They came in 1998, and I can actually recall, because I was a computer journalist at the time, and Microsoft was doing a launch, and Starbucks had just arrived in Parnell, and I couldn't go to the launch, but all my colleagues came back and went, "Oh my God, we have coffee at Starbucks for this thing," and it was terrible.
Yeah.
So I think even then we were coffee snobs. So this idea that we're twits, self-deluded twits who don't know good coffee when we see it is ridiculous.
Wrong.
Basically, Starbucks failed here for the same reason it failed in Australia. It didn't understand the fact that we actually already had a cafe.
And that we are a unique market here.
Yes.
Why can't we be unique? Why do we have to be like America?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened in Israel, Austria, Switzerland. They've never even bothered with Italy. So, we're hardly alone in this.
No, exactly.
But anyway, it was good fun, and there's something over 120 posts, comments for that post. And basically I just want I knew we all like to talk about coffee.
And that's right, it's something we're passionate about.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
what the writer of that particular article needs to understand.
Yep.
Finally, Palestine Papers.
Yeah, and this has gotten almost no coverage here. It's kind of like WikiLeaks done right to me. The Palestine Papers are detailed accounts of peace negotiations kept by the Palestinians, secret records, of the last 10 years of peace talks. And they've caused an absolute sensation. They were leaked to Al Jazeera, who has shared them exclusively with The Guardian. And to me, these seem more important than anything that was in Cablegate. And the way it's been presented is so much more coherent and professional. I was watching on YouTube last night. I've got an Apple TV, and it means I can watch Al Jazeera on YouTube. And the measured and professional way they have handled the story, they've aired all their critics who are saying they've got some secret agenda for releasing this stuff. But basically the story is that it turns out that Palestinian negotiators were prepared to give up a lot more than they were telling their people. The right of return for refugees would have been limited to 10,000 out of 5 million refugees. They were prepared to give up far more territory than they said. They agreed that Israel could call itself a Jewish state, which I don't, is really only, that's a formality to me. But Condoleezza Rice also suggested that the leftover Palestinian refugees could go and live in Latin America, which is quite bizarre.
Yeah.
But this, at the moment, is the talk of the Middle East. And it's being, the story is being handled really, really well. By Al Jazeera, I think it should be an example to everyone else in the news business. I don't think it will be.
But do you think that are the Jewish media covering it?
They are, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the way that Israel comes out of this, you could be forgiven for thinking that they didn't want a peace deal, because what the Palestinians brought to the table was so prodigious.
Yeah.
That how could Israel, if they really wanted a deal, say no to this?
Yeah.
So it is really worth reading up. The easiest way to get into it is go to the Guardian site.
Okay.
But it's a remarkable media story.
Good.
And political story.
Thanks, Russell. Is Media 7 back on?
Media 7's back on next week?
Next week.
Yes.
Great. All right.
Okay.
Cheers.
See ya.
Publicaddress.net in the meantime as well.